My name is Ethan Mercer, and the last thing my ex-girlfriend ever said to me before walking out of my life was this: if you can't even buy your girlfriend an Audi, you'll never be on my level. Enjoy your little life." She said it loudly enough for the entire restaurant to hear. The waiter heard it. The couple at the next table heard it. The bartender polishing glasses behind the counter heard it. And judging by the way everyone suddenly became interested in their food, they all wished they hadn't. I remember staring at her for a few seconds. Not because I was shocked. Not because I was angry. But because after 3 years together, I finally understood exactly who she was. Her name was Vanessa Caldwell. Beautiful, intelligent, charming when she wanted something, and completely incapable of loving anything that couldn't increase her social status. I stood up slowly, put on my coat, looked at her one last time, and said 4 words: "You're right, Vanessa." Then I walked away. 1 month later, I got a call from the courthouse, and everything changed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. My father owned a small repair shop. My mother taught elementary school. We weren't poor, but we weren't wealthy either. The kind of family that repaired things instead of replacing them. The kind that believed character mattered more than appearances. The kind Vanessa spent 3 years pretending to admire. At first, she seemed different. When we met, she was working in marketing. Funny, ambitious, confident. I liked that about her. She talked about building a future together, starting a family someday, growing old together. The usual promises people make when they're still trying to convince themselves they're good people. The first year was wonderful. The second year became expensive. The third year became exhausting. Because the more successful Vanessa became at work, the more ashamed she seemed to become of me. It started with small comments, little jokes, tiny cuts disguised as observations. "You're wearing that? My boss's husband makes 3 times your salary. Maybe someday we'll move somewhere nicer. Do you think your car is finally old enough to qualify as a historical landmark?" I laughed them off. People have flaws. Relationships require patience. That's what I told myself. What I didn't realize was that Vanessa wasn't teasing me. She was measuring me. Every conversation became a performance review. Every purchase became a status symbol. Every achievement became a comparison. And I was always losing. The final argument started because of a car. An Audi. Not even a particularly rare one. Just an expensive luxury SUV she'd seen on social media. We were having dinner at one of her favorite restaurants. The kind where everyone spends half the evening photographing their food. Vanessa had spent most of the meal talking about a coworker's boyfriend. Apparently, he'd just bought her a brand new Audi. She brought it up once. Then twice. Then 6 times. Eventually, I stopped pretending not to understand what she was doing. "You want me to buy you a car?" I asked. She rolled her eyes. "If I have to explain it, that's part of the problem. I should have left then. Instead, I stayed." Sometimes people need to hear the truth before they can accept it. Unfortunately, so do we. "You know what your issue is, Ethan?" she asked. "No. Tell me." "You think being kind makes up for being average." The words landed harder than she realized. Not because they hurt. Because they revealed something. Vanessa genuinely believed value came from status, from income, from appearances, from what other people could see. Everything else was secondary. Then came the sentence that ended us. "If you can't even buy your girlfriend an Audi, you'll never be on my level. Enjoy your little life." The restaurant went silent. I stood, put on my coat, said she was right, and left. She thought she'd won. People like Vanessa always think they've won. At first. The next month was strangely peaceful. I blocked her number. Deleted old photos. Focused on work. My job wasn't glamorous. I was a compliance consultant for a regional financial services company. The type of career nobody brags about at parties. But I enjoyed it. I slept better. Ate better. Even started running again. For the first time in years, I felt lighter. Then came the phone call. It happened on a Tuesday morning. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. "Mr. Mercer?" "Speaking." "This is Fairfax County Probate Court. We need you to come in regarding the estate of Eleanor Whitmore." I frowned. "I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong person." "We do not." The woman sounded certain. "There are documents naming you as a beneficiary." I nearly laughed. I didn't know anyone named Eleanor Whitmore. At least, I thought I didn't. Then the name clicked. Mrs. Whitmore, my grandmother's closest friend, an elderly widow I'd visited occasionally over the years. She used to send me handwritten birthday cards, bake peach pies, ask about my life. I hadn't seen her in nearly 2 years. I didn't even know she'd passed away. 3 days later, I sat inside a courthouse office staring at an attorney. The attorney slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a letter, written by Eleanor herself. If you're reading this, Ethan, it means I'm gone. I hope you finally learn to stop apologizing for being a good man. The world has enough people who confuse arrogance with strength. You were kind to me when you had no reason to be. You visited when others disappeared. You listened when nobody else had time. And I never forgot it. My hands tightened around the paper. The attorney continued. Mrs. Whitmore left instructions. I looked up. Instructions. She had no children, no surviving siblings. Most of her relatives stopped speaking to her years ago. He paused. You were one of only 3 people who consistently remained in contact. I swallowed. What exactly does that mean? The attorney opened another folder. Then he told me a number. For a second, I genuinely thought I'd misheard him. Then I asked him to repeat it. He did. The amount didn't change. Eleanor Whitmore had left me 40% of her estate, nearly $7 million. I sat there speechless. The attorney kept talking. Investments, property holdings, dividend accounts, legal documents. I barely heard any of it, because my mind had frozen at one simple realization. The old woman everyone ignored had quietly built a fortune, and she'd left a significant part of it to me. Not because I was family, not because I expected it, because I had been kind. That's all. Kind. I left the courthouse in a daze, and made one decision immediately. I wasn't telling anyone, especially not Vanessa. Unfortunately, life had other plans. News travels quickly, especially in wealthy circles. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. Vanessa, block number, new phone. I almost didn't answer. Almost. Ethan? The voice was suddenly soft, warm, familiar. The exact opposite of the woman from the restaurant. What do you want? A pause. I heard about Mrs. Whitmore. Of course she had. I just wanted to check on you. I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound surprised both of us. You wanted to check on me? Don't do that. Do what? Be cruel. Cruel. The word hung in the air. The same woman who publicly humiliated me was accusing me of cruelty. It would have been funny if it wasn't so predictable. Then came the next phase, the apology. People like Vanessa always apologize the same way. Not for what they did, for how you reacted. I was going through a difficult time. I was under pressure. I didn't mean it like that. I was frustrated. Every excuse except accountability. Finally, she said it. I made a mistake. There it was. Not because she'd changed, because circumstances had. I thanked her for calling, then hung up. She called again, and again, and again. When that didn't work, she showed up at my apartment. Flowers, tears, regret. An entire performance. The problem was that I'd already seen behind the curtain. A month later, I learned something interesting. Vanessa wasn't doing well. The marketing company she'd worked for was downsizing. Her position had been eliminated. The luxury apartment she'd rented became difficult to afford. Several friends she cultivated through status had quietly vanished. Funny how that works. The people attracted to success rarely stick around for failure. One evening, she appeared outside my building again. This time, she looked different. Less polished. Less certain. Older somehow. Ethan, please. I stopped walking. What? I miss you. No. What do you mean, no? You don't miss me. She looked confused. You miss access. The truth hit harder than I expected. Because she knew it was true, I continued. You miss having someone who loved you when you had nothing to offer. Silence. You miss someone who stayed. More silence. You miss being valued for who you were instead of what you owned. A tear rolled down her cheek. Maybe it was genuine. Maybe it wasn't. At that point, it didn't matter, because some damage isn't repaired by regret, only recognized. She whispered, "Can we start over?" I looked at her for a long moment. Then I thought about Eleanor, about my parents, about the values I'd spent years apologizing for, and suddenly the answer became easy. No. She began crying. I felt sad for her, truly. But sadness isn't the same as responsibility. Her choices had built this moment, not mine. 6 months later, I established a scholarship fund in Eleanor Whitmore's name for students pursuing careers in education and elder care. The first awards ceremony was held at a community center she used to support anonymously. I stood at the podium looking out at dozens of families, students, teachers, grandparents, people whose lives would change because one forgotten woman chose kindness over recognition. That day, I understood something important. The inheritance was never really the money. The money was simply evidence. Evidence that character compounds just like interest. Quietly, patiently, over time. The real gift Eleanor left me wasn't financial freedom. It was confirmation. Confirmation that the values people mock today often become the values everyone admires tomorrow. I heard about Vanessa one final time almost a year later. She'd moved to another state, taken a lower-paying position, started over. I genuinely hope she found happiness. Not because she deserved another chance with me, because everyone deserves a chance to become better than they were. As for me, I still drive a modest car. I still live below my means. I still hear my father's voice reminding me that appearances are rented while character is owned. And sometimes when I think back to that restaurant, I remember the look on Vanessa's face when I stood up and quietly agreed with her. She thought I was admitting defeat. What I was actually doing was letting go. Because the moment someone makes you feel small for not funding their ego, the relationship is already over. The courthouse call didn't change my life. Not really. It just revealed who people already were. Vanessa revealed herself in a restaurant. Eleanor revealed herself in a will. And I revealed something to myself. The people worth keeping in your life never ask you to prove your value with a price tag. They already know your worth before the world does. And that is worth more than any Audi ever built.